As the US celebrated the election of a new president, these Afghans searched for dead bodies after a US airstrike hit a wedding party. It happened in a village near Kandahar. A member of parliament from the area says 35 civilians were killed and 38 injured, but there's another 50 people unaccounted for, potentially buried beneath the rubble.
A lot of people died. We were going to a wedding. We were 12 family members. Only 4 of us survived. And it was like doomsday. They bombed us from 3 o'clock in the morning till late evening.
The bride is among the injured in Kandahar hospital, along with other women and children. This incident comes less than 3 months after an Afghan government commission found that a US operation in western Afghanistan killed some 90 civilians. The US at first denied that any civilians had been killed, but after 2 investigations and the emergence of photographic evidence of dozens of bodies, including children, the US said that 33 civilians had died.
If you want to know how bad it's getting in Afghanistan, just step inside Kandahar's main hospital and take a tour of the wards with a Red Cross team of doctors and nurses. The plight of these victims hits the headlines one day, then is forgotten the next. The wounds will heal, given time, but the suffering could last a lifetime. 16-year-old Hore was at a wedding party the night it was bombed by the Americans at Shah Walikot. We ran into the garden when the bombing started, but they bombed us there as well. I suddenly realized my foot was in small pieces. I saw my cousin lying dead next to me, the bodies of my relatives all around me. The Americans are like animals. They saw us, they realized we were women. They even shone lights on us. But they kept bombing and their soldiers were firing on us. They were so brutal.
Tears and anger after another airstrike left again innocent civilians dead. This time around, the attack took place in Garuch, a remote village in the Lagman province that was attacked by coalition forces for the 4th time in the past year. These people show us the clothes of those who died. I lost everything, says this woman. I lost my husband and my 2 sons. What have I done wrong? There is nothing left for me except these orphans. Days after the attack, the villagers are still collecting the body parts, and children cry, fearing that the bombs will come again. Espingul says 5 members of his family were amongst those killed. He's a government employee, but now says he wants to fight against it.
I am requesting Ahmed Karzai to kick out Americans from Afghanistan. Otherwise, I will put bomb in my body and blow myself up. I was serving the government. What they did to me is unfair. We don't want the Americans to build us roads or bridges. We just want them to leave.
The people in the village say they're tired of the bombs and of seeing their children die. There is no Al-Qaeda here, no Taliban, they say. Shortly after the attack, demonstrations in Lagman called the Americans to leave their country.
Hundreds gathered to express their outrage at what they say was a nighttime raid on the village mosque. They say it was an attempt to insult their religion. Young and old came out chanting death to NATO and America. As they tried to march towards a main highway, the Afghan security forces attempted to block their path. Stones were thrown and the police had to retreat for a time. Then the authorities started firing, they say only in the air. A number of protesters, at least 5, according to Al Jazeera's cameraman, were wounded, although none of the injuries are said to be life-threatening. We filmed inside the mosque where local villagers say the military raid took place.
They were Polish forces with big tanks. They insulted our religion and our Holy Quran. We are weak, but God is great. I hope God will destroy them.
They tied our hands, and when we made any move, they were hitting us and kicking our heads.
A spokesman for the NATO force in Afghanistan at first blamed the protest on Taliban propaganda. He said there were no forces in the area, the raid did not happen. However, the deputy governor of Ghazni province has told Al Jazeera he's certain Polish troops were involved in an operation in the village.
Deep inside Taliban territory, Al Jazeera's producer, Kais Azimi, travelled through Helmand province for a day and a half, crossing the waterways that irrigate the drugs fields, riding with the Taliban in their cars. He arrives at the village of Zandawa in Kajaki district. 2 Taliban stride purposefully up the main street, armed only with radios. Their authority over the villagers is such they need no weapons. All around, tales of devastation, of civilian casualties. The village has been hit many times by foreign forces, the villagers say. They're claiming there is no discrimination in who is targeted. Taliban fighters, women, children, anybody is what they say. Another village, a mosque in ruins, and a chilling opportunity to witness the psyche of a suicide bomber in the making. A burnt Quran giving this boy reason, he says, to die for his faith. Zaifullah is crying, not because he lost his family, but because, he says, the attack destroyed the holy book. Around the camera, the men are saying all the children are prepared to become suicide bombers. Our producer asks Zaifullah directly if he's ready to do that. Yes, is the reply. Why? Because they did this. Zaifullah is 13 years old. Prayers here at the village cemetery, newly filled graves, Taliban fighters, but also, they tell us, of women and children. Kais Azimi says he saw 9 cemeteries in one day, all with recent burials.
They haven't left us anything. They haven't left us food. They kill a lot of us. And I'm thinking how to bury our dead. What is the crime of these innocent people here?
A marketplace was hit in one raid, this bookshop destroyed. Outside a sign, Islamic Emirates of Afghanistan, the insignia of the Taliban. It was clear to our producer what effect these raids are having. The pain of loss. 2 women just in absolute despair. There's nothing left for me, she cries. They killed 13 members of my family. A nearby hospital, children who live through a nightmare, but their injuries testify to the horror of what happened. The pieces of the bombs that fell from the sky in the early evening. Devastation and ruins, the aftermath of an air bombardment that it seems showed no discretion in whom was killed.
I don't know how many members of my family are dead. All I know is that lots of people died. Altogether, over 100 people dead, mostly women and children.
The dead already buried, 30 or 40 individual graves. The silence speaks for their grief. But a mass grave too, containing body parts of more fatalities.
We have civilian casualty in those areas. The reports that I got so far is about 100 civilian people they are killed there because of the bombarding.
Behind the statistics of civilian deaths, real stories of families like this one, lives that will be ruined forever. These children lost 4 family members, including their mother, sister and brother, killed by US troops. The mother, Akbar Jan, was a school teacher. In a neighbour's house, a 9-day-old baby was also killed. The Americans say they believe the house was being used by gunmen. They now admit they made a mistake, but the family have refused their offer of compensation money.
As they entered, they broke down the door, and they started shooting. These are the bullet holes. They killed my mother over there.
The UN figures show this is far from being an isolated incident. Civilian casualties in Afghanistan have been steadily rising.
In Ghazni province, central Afghanistan, the dead include a woman and a child, following what eyewitnesses say was a raid by US forces.
What did we do wrong? They killed my father.
The accounts of what took place here vary. An international force statement says fighters attacked a joint Afghan-American patrol from inside the building. The patrol returned fire and on entering the home found 2 civilians killed in the crossfire. 2 suspected Taliban fighters, ISAF says, were also killed. In contrast, eyewitnesses describe an unprovoked nighttime raid by coalition soldiers. They say 4 civilians died and insist there was no Taliban presence, no shots fired at the patrol. What happened here may be disputed, but what is clear is the anger left behind. Bring me an American, this man cries. This is now a community that blames the current Afghan government and the United States for its grief.
If there's another election, we will not participate, whoever the candidates are. We want nothing to do with the government now.